Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Something at my parents' old house. Hey/X/ this is my first time visiting the board, but I've seen screen caps of stories shared here before. Today I come here to share with you my personal experience with something strange. So when I was 9 or 10, my parents bought a house further back into our neighborhood and we moved there. I'm now 24, married with a kid, and living in a different house in the same neighborhood. These details are important later. And my parents recently moved out of their old house. These encounters with something, I don't want to call it a spirit or ghost or anything because I'm not sure, happened when I was younger and lived in that house. Be 11 years old. Wake up in the middle of the night because I hear someone talking. Get out of bed and walk over to my bedroom door. In the hallway, there's this little girl sitting on the floor playing with some toys. She has long golden hair and is wearing a very simple red dress with a picture of a sunflower on it. Looks to be about 6 years old. Feel incredibly sleepy, so I just stand there and watch her. She is a foot or two past the door to my brother's room, facing the wall. Eventually she turns and looks up at me and smiles. "Hi," she says cheerfully. "Hey," I respond, still not fully awake and not really grasping the fact that there is some strange child in our house. She gets really excited that I responded, "Do you want to play with me?" Tell her I'm too tired to play and then I go back to bed. Before turning around, I notice that she looks really disappointed. Wake up in the morning and remember what happened and feel freaked out, but don't tell anyone. I didn't want my family to think I was having weird dreams and being a big baby about it. A few weeks go by and I completely forget about it. Then it happens again. Wake up around 2 in the morning, hear someone humming, sit up in my bed and lean over so I can see out my doorway. The same girl is there, standing just outside my door, humming cheerfully. "You woke up," she says happily. Just stare at her, blinking my sleep away. She's wearing a plain yellow dress tonight. "Can I come play in your room? The hallway is boring." Again, I don't fully grasp that this girl that I don't know is in my house. I just feel really sleepy. "Nah, I'm really tired. Just go play in the living room or something." She looks really sad and begs, "Please." When I don't respond, she pouts and leaves my doorway. Go back to sleep and feel jolted awake in the morning. Remember everything that happened and start thinking that our house is haunted. The house was only 14 or so years old and we bought the house from the original owners, an old couple. Both were still alive and they bought the house when their children had already grown up and moved out, so no little kids had ever lived in the house. I remember that I had met them once when we were looking at the house for a second time because they came home early while we were still there. They told me they had 2 grandsons about my age, no granddaughters. So with all this information, I was pretty sure there was no way there could be a little ghost girl in this house. A few nights later, I woke up in the middle of the night. I feel really thirsty. Get out of bed and start heading out towards the hall when I hear a sink running. The bathroom light is on. I figure my brother must have woken up as well to use the bathroom or something. Look into the bathroom and see the same little girl brushing her teeth. She's still wearing that yellow dress. Looking back on it, I feel like the outfit she was wearing each time was important for some reason, which is why I keep mentioning it, especially because a few really stand out in my memory. I instantly start feeling incredibly sleepy again. I don't know why, but I felt it was important to see whose toothbrush she was using. We had double sinks in our bathroom, and we designated which one was for me and my brother. She was using my brother's sink, but his toothbrush was still in its little holster on the counter. Look over at my sink. My toothbrush is still there. Think to myself, she brought her own toothbrush, and chuckle. Can see her face in the mirror and for the first time notice her incredibly blue eyes. I have blue eyes, everyone else in my family has green eyes, but her eyes are piercing blue. Turned back to my bedroom, she never saw me. Go back to bed without getting anything to drink. Wake up in the morning, still really thirsty. I realized what happened last night and got angry at myself. I don't know why I didn't feel spooked this time. I was just angry at myself for never realizing what was happening at that moment. It always felt like it wasn't real when it was happening, but it was solidified in my memory the next morning. I was certain that these encounters were actually happening. A year goes by. I wake up and see this girl in the middle of the night every few weeks. Her outfit doesn't change every time, but most of the time it does. A few times I saw her in that first red dress with the sunflower on it. Sometimes it was different red dresses. Sometimes it was the yellow dress. A few times it was a yellow dress with white trim. And then there were dresses of different colors and designs that I can't really remember. Once she wore a white blouse and blue jeans and black tennis shoes. This is the only time I remember ever seeing her wear shoes. At some point she learned my name, though I don't remember ever telling her. She usually calls me by my name. It's pretty much always the same thing with her. I wake up, see her in the hallway. She asks if she can play in my room, and I either ignore her or tell her no. The time she was wearing the blouse and blue jeans, though, I woke up and she was in my room. She smiled at me and giggled before saying, "Whoops, I didn't think you would wake up, sorry." This time I felt afraid. I didn't feel drowsy. "Can I stay in here?" she asks, looking hopeful. "Get out!" I yelled at the top of my lungs. I had never had a panic attack before in my life, but I could feel my chest tightening and began breathing heavily, so I knew I was likely having one now. She winced when I yelled at her and made her way to the door. She stopped before leaving and sniffled. Even though the lights were out, I could tell she was crying. She wiped her face with her arm and whispered sorry before leaving. I just sat in my bed, arms crossed over my chest, squeezing myself and trying to calm down. My mom came in and turned the lights on a few minutes later because she had heard me yell and it woke her up. She asked if I was okay, and I lied and told her that I had just shouted out in my sleep at something in a dream and woken myself up. I think she could tell something was bothering me, but she accepted my lie and turned the light out as she left. I don't know how long I laid in my bed, afraid to go back to sleep, but at some point I did, because I woke up in the morning and still remembered what had happened. Looking back on it, I don't remember feeling like she ever meant me harm. She had plenty of opportunities to hurt me if that was her goal. She had never done anything malicious before, and all she had done this time was enter my room while I was sleeping. I felt bad about it and decided that if I ever felt fully awake during an encounter, that I would try communicating with her. A few weeks later, my brother had a friend spend the night. He had 2 twin beds in his room, so they slept in there. During the night, I woke up and went to take a piss. On my way back to my room, I saw the girl standing with her back to me, looking in my brother's room. She was wearing a blue dress that looked more like a nightgown. She looked over her shoulder at me and had an agitated look on her face. "I don't like him," she told me, and then looked back into my brother's room. I felt incredibly drowsy and could tell what was going on was not normal. I kept telling myself, no, stay alert. But it was just like all the other times. I couldn't grasp what was happening in front of me. I walked up behind her and peered into my brother's room. I could tell she was looking at the bed that my brother's friend was sleeping on. I told her that I was going back to bed and she ignored me, still just glaring into the bedroom. Sometime later, I woke up because someone was banging on a door. I got out of bed and met my brother in the hallway. His friend was inside the bathroom with the door shut. He told us that he woke up to take a piss, and when he went to open the door, it was locked. But the door's lock was on his side. We told him that, and he was like, "Yeah, I know. I unlocked it, but the door still won't open." My brother went off to wake up our dad, and I stood in the hallway to keep the dude company. Then I suddenly remembered what the little girl had said. I don't like him. Again, this little girl had never done anything malicious to me, but she was always smiling at me and asking if I wanted to play with her. I remembered the agitated face she made when telling me that she didn't like him. I got the chills, but didn't say anything to my brother's friend. There were only two possibilities if I told him. One, he'd think I was fucking crazy, or two, he'd completely freak out. My dad and brother came back, Dad with some screwdrivers in hand to remove the doorknob and get the kid out of the bathroom. It took half an hour for him to finally get the door open. When all was said and done, everyone went back to their rooms to go back to sleep. Except for me. I stayed up and watched TV in my room. After a while, I got the feeling that someone was watching me. I turned towards my door and saw the little girl looking in at me. She was covering her mouth with her hands as she tried to stifle laughter, but I could see the counters on her cheeks and tell she was smiling underneath her hands. This is the first time I had seen her while fully awake, and not just waking up. I felt a bit worried because of what had just happened to my brother's friend. "Did you lock my brother's friend in the bathroom?" I asked. She just giggled more. I tried talking to her as if I was talking to a child who had just done something wrong, but I was still young myself and didn't sound very authoritative. "That was really bad of you. You're grounded." "Yeah, way to go me. Act tough to this little girl who somehow got into your house." Then I finally realized the gravity of the situation. There was a stranger in my house, right in front of me. I don't know why it never clicked before, even all the times I woke up and remembered what happened all those nights. I never fully grasped the fact that someone was getting into our house while everyone was asleep, and no telling what she was doing or if she was the only one. I suddenly felt really scared. She stopped laughing and looked really upset. Why? Why what? Oh, right, I told her she was grounded. I had completely lost track of what I had said as I was freaking out about the situation. I thought really hard before answering and made sure my voice wasn't shaking too much as I spoke. "You did a bad thing to him, so you're in trouble." And then she just vanished. Instantly. She didn't turn and walk away. She didn't go up in a puff of smoke. She was just there 1 second and then not there the next. It was the first and only time I had ever witnessed her leave. Every other time she was out of my sight after our interactions, so I don't know if she normally did this or if it was a one-time thing. I repositioned my TV on my desk so that I could stay awake and watch it without having to turn my back to the door. The sun came up an hour later. A few years passed, and I hadn't seen her since that night. My older sister moved out and I got her bedroom, which was on the second floor of the house. After switching rooms, I never saw the little girl again. I would still occasionally wake up in the middle of the night and feel that same drowsy feeling, but I never saw or heard her. Eventually, I forgot about it. Don't ask me how I forgot this thing that happened several times over several years, but I just did. After a year and a half, my sister gets pregnant and moves back in with us. My brother had moved into my old room and she moved into his old room. When my nephew reaches 2 or 3 months old, my brother moves up to share my bedroom. It's the only room on the second floor aside from a bathroom, and it's bigger than both our old rooms combined. One night I woke up feeling drowsy and really thirsty. I go downstairs to get some water from the kitchen, but as soon as I get down the stairs and turn the corner, I freeze. Across the living room, standing just outside the hallway leading to the bedrooms, I see the little girl. I instantly snap out of the drowsy sensation, and all the memories of her came flooding back in. I feel gripped with fear for the first time since I woke up and saw her in my bedroom. She is looking down the hallway, but notices me and turns to face me. She raises a hand and points down the hallway and asks, "Anon, whose baby is that?" I can feel all the color flush out of my skin and I open my mouth to scream, but I can't get it open more than a tiny bit and no sound comes out. She tilts her head slightly to the side, the way a dog does when it's confused. Then she turns back to the hallway and walks down it. I ran across the living room, turned down the hallway, and sprinted into my nephew's bedroom. There's no one there except him sleeping in his crib. I sat down with my back against his crib and just cried. I don't know why, but I just couldn't help myself. I cried for a few minutes, and after stopping, I still sat there in my nephew's bedroom. I don't know how long I was sitting there because there was no longer a clock in the room, but it felt like a few hours. I eventually talked myself out of sitting there, telling myself that there was no way anything bad was going to happen to him. I went into the kitchen, drank a glass of water, and then went back up to my bedroom. This time, when I woke up in the morning, I forgot about what had happened. It wasn't until a few years later that I would remember this incident. Years go by, and I've started dating the girl that will eventually be my wife, and she gets pregnant. I love her, so move into an apartment with her to take care of her and our eventual child. She really likes creepy podcasts and used to visit message boards similar to /x/ where people shared spooky stories and talked about paranormal stuff. One night out of the blue, she asks me if I've ever had weird stuff happen to me, such as aliens or ghosts or stuff. That's when I suddenly remember all the encounters with that little girl. I tell her the entire story that I've posted so far, and the more I talk, the more I can see her look more and more worried. I think that maybe she thinks I'm a nut job, and that she's going to break up with me here and now. But then she asks me if I remembered something that had happened a few weeks prior. We were visiting my parents, and she had gone to use the restroom in that same hallway. She had come back really quickly and was adamant that she wanted to leave. At the time, all she said was that she felt really uncomfortable and just wanted to leave. But now she tells me that as she went to close the bathroom door, she saw a faint, somewhat transparent little girl in a red dress walk past the doorway towards what used to be my nephew's bedroom. My sister and nephew still lived with my parents, but they weren't currently home. The reason she wanted to leave so bad was because she felt scared that their house was haunted. She asked me if I ever saw that little girl after that time when I went into my nephew's bedroom, and if I had ever seen her while living in the apartment with her. I hadn't, and I told her no. A few months later, our daughter was born. She has blonde hair and piercing blue eyes. My mom loves shopping for her and buys her clothes all the time. When my daughter was a year old, she bought her a little red dress with a sunflower on it. She's about to be 2 years old, and though she only knows a few words and can't really speak in full sentences yet, her voice is eerily similar to that little girl's. I have never seen that little girl again, and for the most part I never think about it. I don't want to, but sometimes when I'm watching my daughter play with her toys, I get an uneasy feeling that I've seen her somewhere before, years ago, and then I remember everything that happened. I got that feeling this morning before leaving for work, and that's why I'm posting this here.
Well, the ending is a bit cheesy, but interesting story overall.
I know it's cheesy. It's one of the reasons why I really don't like thinking about it. I know no one is going to believe me. As far as I can tell, my wife has completely forgotten about it because she never brings it up anymore. Honestly, I think I'm reading too much into the similarities between that girl and my daughter. And your insight of it being a bit cheesy helps me feel better about it.
Post pics of the dress, or you're making it up?
I don't have the dress itself anymore to get a pic of, because she's grown out of it and we sold it to one of those Goodwill-like baby clothes stores. But here's the only pic I could find on my phone of her wearing it. Sorry that you can't see the flower. It's on the lower left side.
Be 5-ish. Big boy enough for my first bed. Just a small, shitty plastic bed that's at the foot of my parents' bed because we're short on space due to grandma. Start having vivid dreams. So vivid, they're just as clear as memories, minus some parts till they get faded near the end. Never went away like most dreams do after you wake up either. Always started with me lying down for bed. Second I closed my eyes, I'd get a weird feeling. Exact same feeling you get when your hand goes near something like a balloon and your hair on your hand stands up and tingles. I'd pop my eyes open and the room is lit up like the full moon's out, but from all windows. Here's where things have missing details even though everything else is crystal clear. Every dream starts the same up until this point. Usually it's one, but sometimes more would just sort of pop into existence in my room. They were like a shitty translation of a stick figure into one of those dolls that's just plastic molded around a bendable metal frame. Arms were about as big around as mine were, but so were their legs and torso, and as hard as I try, I can't remember them having a head. Arms, legs, torso all curved gently rather than at the elbows, and they moved like a claymation figure. Stranger, though, was the fact. We'd dance around my room or they'd throw me up in the air and catch me. I'd play games like hide and seek and literally every other thing a 3-year-old liked, from jumping on my shitty bed to sliding down the railings. But never drawing. They were very adamant on that, and would even take away the crayons and paper and put them in places I couldn't reach if I threw a tantrum. After a while, one of them would motion me towards a window and tilt its head. I recall the head tilting, but not the actual head. It's odd, and like if I don't try to remember, it has a distinct mass where a head would be, but trying to actually think about it brings up there being nothing from the neck up. They leave if I don't go with them, but sometimes I did. If I went with them, I only recall flying through the sky and around planets like Saturn or Jupiter. Then came the part I hated and why I didn't go all the time even though I loved flying. I'd sort of snap my eyes closed and open and I'd be in an all-white room with 2 chairs. I'd climb in the chair even though it was too tall and wait. Eventually I'd blink or look away, and when I looked back, another one of them was in the previously empty chair. It was taller than the others. Its chest was like a long, upside-down triangle, and its arms bent at the elbows rather than all over. We'd just sit there for a while, and I for some reason hated it. Hated it. The quiet. The waiting. Not sure how, but I knew what would happen next. Just a long series of questions. I don't even recall the questions for the most part, but the longer it went on, the angrier it seemed. I do recall, "Do you enjoy this? Do you like visiting us? How was flying? Was it fun?" All said in odd tones like it was pasted together using sound bites ranging from angry to bored. Then came the one I hated and knew was coming like it was just some song and dance to butter me up. "Do you want to stay with us, please?" I'd say no, 'cause staying meant leaving Mom and Dad and being around it, which was a scary thought. "Please, please, please." Same sort of sound bite type deal, except each voice was a different one saying the please the exact same way. I'd eventually just start screaming. The second I'd start screaming, my eyes would snap open to Mom or Dad shaking me awake trying to calm me down. For a while I'd just say it was a bad dream. After a year, I finally got my own room and bed. B6. Shit calms down for a bit as I'm starting kindergarten and the dreams stopped. Most classes were normal, but the second it was art time, I exploded. It was my favorite class, and I'd draw and draw and draw. Big issue was I drew hands all weird. Imagine an arm terminating in a 3-pronged Nazi symbol with an extra right angle bend in each arm. Parents got called in cause of the hands as other parents complained or something. Parents told me to not draw it anymore, and I threw a huge tantrum because I had to draw them that way. That's how they are. Took a few days, but I started getting visited by what I started calling the Skeleton Man men, just so they had a name. They'd knock on my closet door, and I'd snap awake and open the door, and they'd walk out. We did pretty much the same shit, but every time they'd motion me to come with them towards the closet, I'd say no, 'cause it was dark, and I hated the dark. Eventually, it would get to one of them tugging on my shirt towards the closet, and for some reason, this set me off. I'd start screaming bloody murder, and parents would come rushing into me standing in my room screaming. Parents got me to a doctor shortly afterwards. Doc says it's just the night terrors acting up, 'cause of all the changes, new room, new school, and all the social shit, stifling my creativity with the drawing deal. Night terrors gradually happened less and less as I got older till they stopped altogether around age 8. Life went on normally minus my OCD, anxiety, and depression the psychs say is from deep-seated, undefined trauma that even hypnotherapy couldn't touch. Cleaning out some shit from the storage room. Namely, my school shit. OCD has its perks and its downsides. Going through the art bin and going through years of my drawings. Get to my old kindergarten shit I threw a fit over when Mom suggested throwing away my stuff, starting the whole storage room hoarding. Find my old skeleton man pictures. Shit's creepy, and I'm starting to see why parents complained. Weird landscapes, animals, symbols, hieroglyph-type things, weird rooms with what might be faces inside windows, spaceships with faces staring out, me flying outside my house, pictures of Saturn and various other planets, and generally weird shapes and shit. All of them have what I can only describe as a child's interpretation of your stereotypical gray alien. Picture after picture, each one of just plain weird shit like cities in black, and my being carried by one or me in a room with a window full of stars and the big angry one sitting in its chair. Started having a minor panic attack and just calming myself down. Gather my shit and go talk to my mother about it. She definitely recalls all the night terrors I had caused. That shit woke her up on cue at 2 a.m. almost every night for 5 years. Trying to figure this out because it's like some cheesy sci-fi horror movie. Start asking questions. Turns out I mentioned the skeleton men a lot, and my mom just thought they were imaginary friends. She definitely remembers me liking space and stars. Remembers I'd talk about planets around stars or how big Saturn's rings were or how things never fell down in space. I asked her how long ago that shit started. Right from age 3 when I started getting really talkative and understandable. It's what prompted her to get my space-related books when I was 5 and could properly read them. Ask her if she didn't think that shit was weird coming from a 3-year-old before he got his hands on books about space and wasn't allowed to watch TV because she said that shit ruined minds. She just shrugs and said I was into odd stuff for a kid. Ask her if there's anything odd she remembers clearly from when I was a child. Big one, she said, was when she found out I was a climber. Asked what she meant by that. Tells me she first noticed it when she'd put me down for a nap or for bedtime in my crib. She'd come back and the crib's obviously been moved from where it was. Stranger, though, was the fact. Says she never saw me do it, but it always happened every time. Keep asking her for other shit. Said I'd put things in the oddest places like my crayons on top of the shelves I'd have to climb as a small child, paper in the air vents, or random objects behind child locked. Those handles you had to squeeze insanely hard to grip the doorknob or ratchet systems that require actual finger dexterity and adult-sized hands. Doors and cupboards. Had to remind her I wouldn't do that shit as I was deathly afraid of heights from birth, and I couldn't be 2 inches off the ground, much less scaling a 6-foot shelf without crying my eyes out. Had to remind her the one time age 3 I tried to open the child-locked doors. I pulled a muscle in my hand and age 4 skinned my knuckles trying the ratchet child locks. Ask her if she had any odd dreams or something like I did. Tells me every night for the longest time she had dreams that always came down to someone taking me away, and it always ended with me screaming my lungs out and her waking up to go calm my ass down. Showed her the pictures I drew and asked her what she thinks of them. Admits they're definitely off, but that's not something to be worried about, as I was a creative and odd kid. Point out all the skeleton men and ask her what that shit looks like. Mom kind of hesitates like she never actually stopped to think about this. Says it's the shit my older sister used to draw. Actually have her high school shit from art class since she made a lot of placings in art fairs, and Mom didn't like throwing away achievement things like first place drawings or trophies from sports, even if they were participation awards. Page through her old sketchbook. It's like an extremely feminized version of your typical gray, just add nose, hair, and pupils in different settings or poses. It's hard to look at. It's so uncanny and creepy. Page after page after page. Ask Mom about this, and she says Sis was a lonely kid and had a big angst stage, so she never hassled her over prize-winning art, even if it was kind of creepy. Ask her if she's noticing any of the crazy similarities from the shape of the face and head to the same arm, leg, and torso proportions and cyst to mine. Didn't even know, but my sister had the same damn night terror issue as well. Stranger, though, was the fact. Actually call my sister up and get to talking. Had dreams where she'd fly around the world and visit the moon. Had these friends in her dreams, too same body though for her. They had these long doll faces with big eyes and long hair. Ask her if the dreams ended in questions or a big one in an empty room, or them wanting her to stay with them. Doesn't talk for the longest damn time and says she knew I had the same shit happen to me. Heard all the hysterics I had every night, and all the odd shit I'd talk about and kept quiet about it because after a while it stopped, just like her dreams did. By now, Mom, oldest sis, and I started grilling my other sister and Dad, and they remember the odd things and drawings but no weird dreams or anything else. Oldest sister is panicking her brains out at this point, and Mom's kind of edging there too. I recall that one movie with the owl alien faces and that it was based loosely on an actual deal. And remember, hypnotherapy did something even though my previous sessions did nothing. I managed to talk to the therapist from years ago about hypnotherapy. He probably thinks we're all crazy, but I'm willing to pay for sessions for 3 people so he's in, even if he doesn't know why. Not sure where the hell this is leading, and I'm not sure I should do this or drag my family with, but it's seriously messing with me now that shit's getting creepily real. Give me a bit. I'll draw both the normal and big one. Realize my handwriting shit, so here's a more legible guide. Left to right. How I remember them as a kid. Same height as a 5-year-old. How I used to draw them. Shittily drawn me for scale. The big one.
Be me. I was about 7 or 8. Grounded for failing a test, sitting in my room listening to my radio alarm clock, Dad's home watching TV in the living room. Can't leave my room, can't watch TV, normal stuff. Hear floor squeaking from the living room to my room. I cover up and pretend I'm sleeping. Hear door swing open. Nothing happens for about 5 minutes. Still pretend I'm sleeping. Open eyes and nothing's there and my door is still open. Decide I want some food. Drink. I can see the couch from my room. My dad's asleep. Fuck yeah, .jpg. Solid snake my way into the kitchen without waking my dad. As soon as I look into the kitchen, all the cabinets are wide open. Stranger though was the fact. All of them slam at once. We had cabinets all around the left wall of the kitchen going to the back door. I nope as fast as I can back into my room, close the door and hop in bed and throw sheets over me. Turn my radio down and wait and listen. It feels like forever, but only about 10. 15 minutes pass by. Start to think maybe I fell asleep from when I was pretending to be sleeping. Turn radio back up and chill for a bit. Hear the same creaky footsteps coming down the hallway. As the sound gets closer, the radio starts to bug out, making white noise. This time hide under the covers. The footsteps get close to the door and I can hear it open this time. I turn off the radio because it's only making things worse. Trembling at this point, I sit and wait once more. After a few minutes, I check. The door is open, but no one's there. I sum up all the courage my little 7-year-old had and walk out in the living room. My dad's still asleep. I wake him up and ask him if he heard a loud bang a bit ago. He says no and tells me to go back in my room. I sat in my room scared until my mom came home with Mickey D's. To this day, that is one of the worst experiences I've ever had, but not the worst.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.